Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
Hey everyone, so welcome back to today's show. I'm really excited for today. We have a really cool guest, and it's Chris Farr. So he's the VP of Operations at Envision Technologies. With over 20 years of IT experience and the past 10 years in leadership within the managed service provider MSP space, he's built a career around helping businesses leverage technology to operate more securely, efficiently, and strategically. Chris has worked hands-on across the evolution of IT, from fast-paced challenges of the early days to today's cybersecurity-focused, cloud-driven environment. As a leader in the MSP industry, he's passionate about guiding organizations through technology challenges, building strong teams, and sharing practical insights on IT strategy, risk management, and the role of technology in driving business growth. Chris enjoys connecting with audiences who want real-world lessons from the front lines of managed services and leadership. So welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. I mean, I definitely want the real world lessons, and I feel like my audience does, so you're a perfect match. So let's dive into Envision, because you've been there for quite some time. When you first joined Envision, what was your role there?
Well, I came on board originally to assist with on the technical side, to be more of a network engineer, more of the hands-on, the wrench turning type jobs. And then as time went on, kind of just worked my way up and worked my way into a leadership role.
Amazing. That's awesome. And did you guys know that that was something that you were going to do when you're there, or was it just a great company to work for, so it kind of naturally happened?
A little bit of both. We kind of assumed it, but we're just waiting for the growth to get there, and just the way things just happened and kind of just fell into place. So right place, right time, and it just seemed like a perfect fit.
That's cool. So you've actually watched Envision grow quite significantly with your time there.
Oh yeah, we've grown from one location here in Albany, and now we have three locations. So yeah, we've grown by just number of staff that we have, as far as number of clients that we have, and just our footprint in general. Has grown quite significantly.
Oh, that's cool. And I'm curious too, because now that you're the VP, what are you doing present day? What would you say your present day tasks are?
Present day task would be more or less just making sure the efficiency is at the level that we need it to be, making sure that we've got the right number of staff members to service the number of clients that we've got, to make sure that that experience is extremely good, on both sides of the table, and making sure that our clients' needs are getting handled, within the service level agreement that we set forth, saying, based on the type of issue that comes in, the speed of the response that you're going to get, for whatever issue that, may arise. And also just making sure, that the agreements that we've got, it aligns, well for both sides, for the client and for the company as well, to make sure that the client's getting the most bang for the buck on their side, and to make sure, that we've got enough on that agreement, to make sure that we're able to, provide for our technicians as well.
Okay, that's awesome. And so as you started to understand more of the management side of the business, when you say that I need to have enough staff members to be able to handle the customers, how did you guys ensure that you knew it was time to either hire more or, take the next steps in expanding that division?
Really, we look at the number of endpoints, which is the number of computers that are out there, servers that are out there, network gear, routers, switches, et cetera, the whole gambit. And we look at the number that we've got out there, and the level of hardness that it is to actually work on some of those types of equipments, and the type of mindset and the type of technician that's needed, to also fill those roles. And so we look at the number that we've got versus the number of technicians that we've got, and kind of blend that together to kind of find that happy medium, to say, okay, with this number of technicians can service this many of endpoints, based on the client. So it's kind of a moving target, and it kind of depends on the type of endpoint, the type of hardware that's out there that they're actually looking at too. So it's a little more than just saying this number of technicians to this number of clients. But just it's just kind of the nature of just going through it, and having been been doing this, for so long that we're able to kind of just look at it and decide from that standpoint, how many that we need and how many that we need to hire. And, when we get to the point where we need to start, seeing who's out there, seeing who's on the bench, to be able to bring them in.
Okay, I'm curious too, because something that you said in there as well is that it's not just the type of technician, but it's also the mindset that the technician has. When you say mindset, can you elaborate like what you meant about that? I haven't heard that before, like even with the technician side.
Well, there's different levels or different types of technical mindsets. I mean, you've got the kind, being that we're in the managed service world and not your typical, corporate IT where we're on the
Mhm.
same payroll as the receptionist or the same payroll as the attorney or et cetera. We're in that service industry, so we have to have technicians at the level where they're getting in and getting what we call a line of business app troubleshooting, where it's, you can't get into your practice management software, you can't get into your CRM, where there's some issues
Mm.
within that. So they have to be able to kind of walk that tightrope to be able to bring the customer service level to the client as well as the technical ability. So, it's one of those where as long as they care about the client that they're working on, the client will forgive their technical shortcomings because everybody's going to make mistakes, from time to time. So they have to be able to fix your problem, and they also have to be able to deliver that level of customer service. And that's kind of more of a jack of all trades technician, where it can be somebody who can work on your printer to what we kind of call a tier two level, kind of mid level technical problem. And then there's another technical mindset, more of the higher level, that are getting in there and working more with the cybersecurity tools and working more with the routers and the switches and kind of the back end of how everything works. So it's kind of the stuff that's not really client facing, but it's more of the stuff that keeps everything running, that just keeps your business going, keeps the internet flowing, keeps all the computers talking to each other. So there's two different mindsets that you got to have. You got to have that one that's happy working with just machines and talking to a computer all day long, and then you have to have those technicians that also enjoy talking to people just as much as they like to do technical work. So that's kind of where you got to find the right mindset and the right technical ability to service that client.
I feel like that's a niche in itself, like finding those individuals.
It really is. It's a hard find. I mean, we've got a great group of people here, that are able to do every bit of that. So yeah, it is. It's a hard skill to find, but once you find them, you got to hang on to them.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And I'm curious too, because something you were saying too is that you make sure that the agreements are aligned on both sides. So, how often do you guys check in on those agreements to make sure they're working? And is there a like standard operating procedure that you have put in place to ensure that you're not losing money on it?
Yeah, we've got some automated reports and things that kick out once a week that, just kind of it looks at the outliers, the ones that are kind of just, that's just not in line, where we need it to be. And so that kind of
Mhm.
just gives us a way. Is it something that we need to do better on the technical side, to be able to fix problems quicker? Is it the same type of issue that keeps coming up that maybe it's an internal training issue that we need to look at and say, okay, well, the technicians seem to be struggling on these types of tickets for this particular client. So then it would be beneficial, to train those guys up, to say, okay, here's what we need to do to get you where you can work these, faster, more efficient, or just make the problem go away completely. It may just be putting a band-aid on it where at the end of the day, it needs a full solution on it. And so, because when you're in the weeds like that, it's kind of hard to see if it's different technicians where they're getting the same type of issue from the same client, on a regular basis. Where if you look at the big picture, it kind of starts to show us, that yeah, we do have a deficiency, in this area. And then as far as looking at it at the time we get ready to say when it's time to renew an agreement or it's time to if the client's growing and we need to revisit the agreement because they're adding two more locations, at that point we'll look at the agreement gross profit as well and look at it and say, okay, are we hitting the mark that we need to hit, on what we're doing now, and then what are we bringing on to see what we need to either add or, sometimes if they're shrinking or, getting smaller, of course, removing from that agreement as well. So it does make sense on both sides because it's got to be enough where it's got to be effective on the client side where it makes sense to outsource it rather than hire somebody internally that's going to, if you get one person, they're going to call in sick. Where if you go with an outsourced company, you get a team of people. So it doesn't matter if one person calls in sick. So we have to make it where it's efficient and beneficial on their side financially and just operationally. And then, of course, we have a business to run too. So it has to make sure that it makes sense on this side that, that we can provide for all of the technicians that we have in-house.
That's awesome. As you're talking about it, kind of overarching, I was like, this company really loves like discovering the deficiencies, the bottlenecks. So is that something that you guys have been practicing since you started there, or was it something that came on a little bit later? I love finding those little tiny, it's almost like the things that are jamming you up, right? Those tiny little things and sort of clearing them. But I know not everyone seeks as hard as I think you guys are looking.
Right. Well, you got to look inward, right? I mean, you've got to look at it and say, okay, what can we do better? And that's one of our core values is continuous improvement. And so, through that, it's always what can we do to be better? I mean, is that saving money? Are we paying for two tools that are doing the same thing? Can we strip that back to make us, run more efficiently? Or is it a training issue that we need to attend to? Whatever that case is, but we've always had the continuous improvement mindset where we're always just trying to be better every day, be better tomorrow than we were today. There's always something you can improve upon, no matter how good the day was. So we've always looked at it from that aspect. But then last year, we also adopted the EOS mindset and started, implementing that company wide. And that's kind of helped us as well to kind of pull back and look at it and, make sure that the people that are in the seats that we've got now and what they own and the responsibilities that they own, that they can go back then and go, okay, within my realm that I'm in charge of, or that, I'm supposed to be looking at, what can I do to make it better? And not all the time is it a cost savings thing. It could just be, what can we do to make the client experience even better? Because at the end of the day, if the clients aren't happy, we don't have a job. So, that's the number one thing right there is we don't want to have an unhappy client. And to not have an unhappy client, we have to keep making ourselves better too. And so to say all that, yes, we've always had the continuous improvement, but we've kind of ramped it up and gotten even more in that mindset the more that we're starting to grow as well, the bigger that we're getting.
Well, definitely wisdom. I love that you guys are implementing the system as well. Technically, I'm more on the scaling up side, and so I love the scaling up system. But as I've told you before, it's pretty parallel in what they do, in the sense of the system's just a little bit different with scaling up. But yeah, I love
Right.
the organization and the structure and that dynamic because you're right. It's like as you scale, if we don't understand how to make sure the company is stable while we're growing, it's just chaos on the back end.
That's it. And it's better to get it in at any level, especially at an early
Yeah.
level. That way, when you do get to the point, you're not looking at it saying, I wish we had something in place. So, it's great that, you get something in place. At least that way you got your rules of the road at that point. You can at least say, okay, well, here's the accountability chart, and who's in charge of what. And it feeds back into, just making us better, day by day. So that way it keeps everybody in their same sandbox and their same lane, but still brings everything to the common goal at the end of the day.
And with the accountability chart as well, had you implemented that before, or is that something that you just started implementing now?
That's something that we started implementing once we implemented EOS. So we didn't have an
Okay.
official accountability chart. And of course, we had to flip the script from the organizational chart to the accountability chart. And so, yeah, that's what we're living by now, though, is the accountability chart since we've implemented EOS.
So I'm curious, how did everyone handle the accountability dynamics? Because I'm sure you had some people who really enjoyed it, but some who were a little resistant. And I think I'd love to hear how you help the resistant ones, because that's one of the main questions all my clients ask me all the time and that we get to work on.
Right. I think it was more in our minds than anything else that we would have the resistance. I mean, because when you're changing anything, you automatically think that you're going to have, a good number of people that are going to resist the change, regardless of whatever the change is. But at the end of the day, once we did implement it and we laid it out there was no pushback at all. I mean, it pretty much everything aligned. We did get lucky in that aspect that the people that we did have in the seats that were already in the seats when we flipped it and put it on the accountability chart, they were technically already in the seats and doing what they were doing. One thing that it did, though, that was eye opening is looking at things that, number one, that you shouldn't be doing, that you should be delegating down, to another resource. So it was more of, I guess, for lack of a better term, turning loose of the vine. So, for certain people, myself included, it's just things that you may be good at it. You may enjoy doing it, but does it make sense at the end of the day for you to put your time, effort, and energy into that task when it could be, delegated elsewhere? And so that's been some of that's been some of the hardness throughout the process through me and other people, is just turning loose of things. And so, but the thing is once you turn loose of it, though, you do realize that you can be more impactful in other areas and things that, that are more in your wheelhouse and are more in your realm. You're able to give that even more percentage of your time and, make things even better at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I love how you shared that just even putting the accountability dynamic within the company allowed you guys to delegate wisely. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's just one of those things that just happens as a natural result of starting to take some things off your plate and actually looking a little bit more at the details of what your day-to-day looks like. This is very
It does.
cool.
It
Yeah.
really does. It's been impactful.
And I'm curious too, so this one's fun, because I think, we hadn't even shared this yet, but I know that you had mentioned before you even joined the company, like you had to be sold to join this company. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, and not necessarily the company as a whole. Kind of what we were talking about was the managed service world and the outsourcing of IT.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny that the owner of the company and his partner at the time, yeah, I had known him, forever. I went to school with him. And so when I was the vice president of technology at a credit union here in town, they were already doing the managed service world, the outsourcing IT. And when you're in a corporate IT world, that's kind of it can be a scary subject, because you don't know exactly what that is, and especially early in the game, it was still kind of new, as far as it coming up. And yeah, at the end of the day, I told him, I said, I just don't think this is going to work. I don't think that the managed service world is going to be the way of the future, because back then everything, it was always talking about outsourcing, and then 6 months later, no, bring it all back in house, regardless of what that is. As I remember telling him, I said, I just don't think this idea or this whole system is going to work. And then fast forward, years later, here I am, and it's working great. So
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. That's amazing. And so tell us a little bit about the service model as well, because I know that you guys handle a significant quantity of things. If I remember correctly, just so you can refine the words, but it was starting to notice all the various parts that your customer required, and you guys have been adding on like kind of systematically bit by bit, and you're still adding on, I understand. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
yeah, we consider ourselves more of an IT integrator rather than just an IT company. And kind of what that means is, in a normal managed service world, most managed service providers, they offer their flagship product, which is, it's your break fix. It's anything to do with your technology, as far as your servers, your workstations, your switches, all of that gear. When it goes bad or it's not working correctly, you turn it over to your managed service provider, and then they'll fix the problem. But the problem with that is sometimes people grow, and they get a new location, or they're rebuilding or remodeling a section of their building, and they need cabling, they need network cabling, or they need fiber optic cable, or something to that level, and they're constantly outsourcing. So managed service providers are looking for a subcontractor to take care of that for them. So what we've done is we have our own internal low voltage department, and they do everything from Ethernet cable to fiber, you name it, every bit of the structured cabling. And so that takes out of having to go find a vendor for it. The client says, hey, I've got an office here that we're buying, I need 3 network drops, or I need this. We can just create a ticket on our side, funnel it to the correct department, and it just happens. And then also too, access control, instead of having to have keys nowadays, with access control and your camera systems, your alarm systems, your fire alarm system, we handle all that in-house as well too. So that way, everything that a client could possibly need, whether it's your phone system, whether it's your security system, whether it's access control, everything you could possibly think of, even to a TV being hung up on the wall in your conference room, we have expertise and technicians in-house that can handle all that from right here without having to go source another vendor for it. And so what that does is it takes away the finger pointing and the blame game, because anytime you bring somebody else in to kind of assist with a project, if you're doing part of it and another company is doing it, you run the risk of, well, I thought you were going to do this. I thought this was in the scope of your work. Where what we bring to the table is the full IT integrator, is that there's one throat to choke. It's only us. So everything that you need for that building is coming through one of our offices. So that way the client has one point of contact as well. So if there's, any type of changes that need to occur during the process, or, if we come up with suggestions that one side of the house mentioned to the other side of the house, it says, hey, we were out here, doing X, Y, and Z. We noticed that, hey, you're going to need this also when you get to your portion of the project. We can go ahead and bring that to a head, get it done, and then go ahead and get the client involved ASAP. So it makes for a much seamless process for the client, makes their experience a lot better. And then it also, too, from a selfish standpoint, it just makes it easier for us as well, because that way we're not having to be dependent on another company being slow, or being backed up, or whatever the case is. We've got control of all the resources, the manpower, and the expertise right here under one roof.
I'm curious too, because the company continues to grow and evolve, like, are you guys planning on taking on more aspects to integrate within your service?
Yeah, I'm sure we always will, because
Mhm.
our goal, and plus in the nature of IT, you really can't predict out, 10 years from now, what is that new technology going to be? I mean,
That
we
is
got kind of
tricky.
a roadmap of where it's going, just because just looking at the way things are going. But I mean, 10 years ago, would you think AI was going to be so much in the forefront as it is right now?
Nope.
And so, I mean, because it was always a buzzword and always being talked about. So it really depends on the nature of the industry. But our goal, absolutely, I mean, whatever that quote unquote new technology is at that time, we will find some way to incorporate it, into our system, just to make things easier for the client. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal. And so whatever that is, yes, we will find a way to bridge that gap and make it happen.
That's cool. When you guys take on the new technology, is it a complicated thing to take on, like, a new technology? Are you having to almost build like a new department, like, or can you sort of integrate it more simply with your team?
Well, currently the way we've got it set up with the low voltage side, with the what we call our data team, which is our managed service,
Mhm.
the computer side, and our security team, which handles security systems and access control and whatnot. So far, we've been able to take every piece of the technology that's coming down the pike and put it into one of those silos, or into one of those buckets, to make that so whoever the director is of that particular department or realm can take it under their umbrella and then master it and then push it down to all of their direct reports. So far that's been a pretty good way, to make things happen, because now, even looking at a voice over IP telephone, for example, all it is a small computer. And so, not to make it as simplistic as I'm making it, because I mean it's a little bit more than this, but it's really no different than getting a one of those phones online where it's going out and talking to the internet, to the same way that your computer is talking to the internet. It's just a different infrastructure and a different point, that it goes out. So really, the way the technology is going, even though it's advancing and it's building upon itself. And so for the most part, you can take it and kind of pigeonhole it into one of the departments and one of the skill sets that's already there. Then you
Mhm.
just have to get those skills brushed up, into that avenue. So there is a learning curve with that. Now, I can't really predict what it's going to be, later on down the road. I'm sure it'll be a whole different thing that we're not even thinking about right now. But as of right now, we're able to kind of use the resources that we've got, and then get them some training and get them some certifications that can kind of help them with the new technology. And of course, we try it internally. We learn it before we're going to turn it loose to a client, of course, as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious too, because when you're hiring individuals, are you also hiring individuals looking for people who actually just want to learn and have education? Because it sounds like education is an integral part of your company.
It is, and it really depends on where we're lacking. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
looking for somebody who, let's say, if a client purchases, 20 computers from us, and we need a technician who can get out there, unbox them, get them online, get their software installed, whatever that is, those are easy teachable things as long as they have a technical mindset and a technical understanding of how things work. And so that type of technician and that type of skill set, it's almost better to get them in green, so to speak, with a little bit of IT understanding and the IT, a little bit of the background, but just less formal training, so to speak, because then we can take it and say, okay, well, this is how we need it done. This is how, we push it through the system. And then we can build upon that, as time goes on. But then, if we're on the flip side of that, if we're looking for a higher end level technician, that we need somebody there that's going to be more or less like a firefighter. They're not going to be busy all of the time because there's always not a router or or something high level like a firewall going down. But when they do have an issue, it's an urgent issue and you need somebody on it right now. So those higher level technicians, you really need more of the certifications, you need more of the formal training, plus you still need just the time on the ground too, the time actually just, being in the weeds, being in the business and working on it. So really it depends on what type of technician or what type of skill set that we're lacking at the time. And then the good thing is once we get one of the guys in that just don't exactly have the expertise or haven't been doing it very long, as they go through and progress through us as well, they're learning more skills because during their downtime, of course, they're learning, in their personal time. These guys that they love going after certification. They love going after, just bettering themselves. And so they're moving up, within our company as well, and makes them more valuable, and so it's kind of win-win on both sides. I don't know if that answers the question, but we're kind
It
of looking at
does.
it from both sides. It really just depends at the end of the day, where we're at staff wise and, where we need more expertise.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Thank you. It's a great breakdown. Now, I'm curious too, because something that you shared in our pre-call was that you guys actually acquired a telephone company as well to help to convert some client base, but also, again, to expand that service you provided. So, what was the decision to actually acquire another company this time?
Well, as far as the telephone company, our principal owner, he wanted to get into the telephone systems, because that was just one of the other things, kind of like what I was mentioning as far as the IT integration. We're just something else we can bring to the table without having to outsource to another company. And so he made the decision at that point to purchase telephony or a telephone department or a telephone company, and they had a lot of on-premise phone systems. And so what they were tasked to at that point is to take all of those on-premise systems as they either got end of life or just through attrition, was to convert those to voice over IP. And so regardless if they were converted to voice over IP or they stayed on that on-premise phone system with the big cabinets, in the back room, it still made it where all the expertise was in-house. So those
Mhm.
technicians came with the company as well. And so the client then was able to call in and get their, regular telephone support. But then if they needed IT support too, now that's been added on to the business. So it helped all of their clients. And then it also helped all the Envision clients as well, because all of the clients that didn't have phone service or had it with a third party vendor that would rather keep, all their eggs in one basket, they could then, convert that over to our system and then have everything in one place. So it just makes it much more seamless when you can do everything across the board. So that was just one more facet and one more piece of the pie to bring to the client to make it a better experience for them.
And are you guys thinking about doing other acquisitions in the future? Is that something that's kind of on the table, or is it something that you actively seek out based on other partnerships that would really be profitable and collaborative like this?
Yeah, it really just depends. I mean, we're always looking at going and growing. So, I mean, if acquisitions come our way, and if it's in a territory or an area that we're interested in moving into, and if it aligns with our goals, absolutely. I mean, that's always going to be the goal. Just to keep going and growing, because right now we can only be the best IT integrator company, in this area. Which, we're, like I said, we're covering 3 different locations, 3 different cities, and a lot of those in between. But the only way to grow it, even bigger and be the best IT integrator that's out there, period, is to continue to expand your footprint. And I feel like the bigger that we get and the more markets that we move into, just a better IT experience is going to be given to the people, in those areas. Because there's a lot that we can bring to the table, because we decided to take the concierge approach to IT, where even if it's something that's not in one of those silos or one of those areas that I mentioned earlier, their client can still throw it into our realm. Just throw it to us. We'll figure it out. We'll either point you back to the vendor that you need to go to. We're not going to go out there and fix your air conditioner for you. But if you have a problem and you don't know where to send it, you send it to us. We'll point you in the right area and say, okay, we'll make this phone call for you. If it's your internet provider and, you're having issues with that, even if we're not in the mix with your internet provider, under vendor management, we'll still make that call for you. Let us sit on the phone and waste, whatever time it is with this internet provider to get your issues fixed rather than you having to do it. You go out and do what you do best. You let us do what we do best. And then it just kind of fits at that point.
That's awesome. I would have loved to have you at one of the companies I worked on. I had to do all that stuff and I hated it. I'm listening to you and I'm like, that sounds like a dream.
Right. It seems to work for most people. They seem to enjoy it. When we do have clients come on board with us that have been at, another IT provider, they say it's night and day. And that's just, it's
Yeah.
just one of the things we've done. We kind of, lead with a servant's heart, just take and take every problem that we can possibly take off their plate and make it our problem. And then it just makes the relationship so much better because it turns it into more of a partnership rather than just a vendor relationship. And once you spin that and it's more of a partner, then it just makes everything so much better. It just makes it, once you're a piece of their company, so to speak, and you've got a seat at their leadership team at their leadership table when it comes to IT decisions, IT budgets, IT, just whatever that is, they trust you at that point too, because you are a partner and you're not just a vendor, just out there trying to nickel and dime them. If they do better, we do better. Let's just, like I said, let us do what we do, you do what you do, and the relationship just works.
And I'm curious too, because what made you guys decide to do the concierge approach? Because just even some of the things you're saying, you're right, like contacting the vendors, it is going that extra mile. It eases up a lot of pressure and tension for the client on the receiving side. And it's, I don't know, it's like a bonus, right? But what made you guys decide to do something like that?
That actually predates me. That actually is from the beginning of the company when Jay Pollock actually had the idea and started it. That was one of the things, was to just take it over the top. Just be the best that there can be for the client. And so that's kind of just trickled down and it stayed, throughout the whole process. And so anytime we get any new employees or we're onboarding or we're talking to them, that's the first thing we tell them. So we take the white glove concierge approach. It's the same thing if you're at a nice hotel and you want to find tickets to a Broadway show. They're just going to find it for you, regardless of what it is. And same with us. That's what we're trying to do, because again, the main reason is just to build a partnership and not a vendor
Mhm.
relationship with them.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. I remember we did that at one company. I think it's quite fun.
Yeah.
When I was working at this one, I actually thought it was quite fun to do the white glove approach. And then after that, I worked at a corporation that was not even close to white glove. And I was like, I can't handle this. I was like, the client wants this. It's like, I could do it. I could just do it. It'll take me 5 minutes. It'll take me 5 minutes. It'll be night and day. Just let me do it. And they're like, no, it's not your job. And I was like, you're making me
Yeah,
crazy. Um,
right. It just feels better to be able to
it
provide
feels
that and do it
better.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels amazing. And I'm curious too, like even with that concierge approach, the white glove service, like how are you guys tracking that? How do you track your customer satisfaction and how do you measure that to ensure that that's staying basically on board?
Well, every time we close a ticket, every time one of our technicians completes one, it sends out a customer satisfaction survey. Just taking the pulse to see, were you happy? Were you just okay? Or was there a problem? And so that's how we track the customer satisfaction on a day-to-day basis. But it goes a little bit deeper than that as well, because a lot of people would just take the email, regardless if they're mad or happy, they'll just delete it, or move on. So what we also do is we do technical business reviews where we'll get in front of our clients. At least it's different cadences depending on the client and their needs and their wants, but at least once a year. But we try to do some of them, quarterly, some of them, every 6 months. But either way, we get in front of them. Just say the first question we ask is, how are we doing? Are we doing okay for you? Are there any pain points? And that usually gets the conversation going, as far as, how just gauging how we're doing for them. So that's kind of in the big picture. But the day-to-day ones with the customer satisfaction surveys, even if we get one that's just kind of middle of the road, we're going to give them a call and just say, "What is everything okay?" Because sometimes they just click the wrong button, so at least gets the conversation going. And then usually, if they're not so happy, or there's something that kind of went awry, when you get them on the phone and they know that, hey, you cared enough to call to say, okay, well, what's this about? Is there an issue here? And usually that'll turn it around as well. Just in kind of talking it through. So that's kind of how we keep a pulse on it to see, how we're doing for the clients. Because it's much better to know throughout the contract and throughout the life of the relationship rather than just, excuse me, rather than just at the, when everything blows up, and it just gets where it's too far gone. So far that's been working out pretty well for us.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company. That's awesome. And I'm curious too, so I know that you mentioned that basically the IT industry has dramatically changed, right? From when you first were working at Envision 10 years ago, you guys were kind of focusing on something different. So tell us a little bit about how it's changed and when you started to notice that shift.
Well, it's been in the past few years that the shift has really happened because I mean, there was a time where IT and just security in general, as far as IT was a firewall, antivirus, and just the hope that nothing bad would happen, and then your worst case usually was your computer crashed and you need to get a new hard drive in it. And so that was a lot of the things back in the beginning. It was just computers broken, slow, or whatever the case is, make it faster, or replace it, or do something with it. So it was a lot of just that, making sure the antivirus was installed. And back then it's still happening now, but it was more before the more of the ransomware attacks, and getting your files locked down and restoring from backups when that happens, or worst case scenario, if somebody didn't have backups and didn't have an IT company or an IT department, paying the ransom or either just starting over, from scratch. Where now just with everybody working remote, it seems, and just and offices being spread out just across different locations, and most of your software and your files and your platform and whatnot is in the cloud. So it kind of broadens the cybersecurity realm, because everything's being driven by email. So you run the risk of, attacks, through your email system where somebody's kind of laying in wait, where you think you're emailing a trusted person and either your email account or their email account may be compromised, and a bad actor sitting in there. You think you're corresponding with this one person, and the next thing you know, you've sent money to the wrong person, or, whatever the case is on the email side of it. And then you run the risk too, with data breaches, with just and then also too, the biggest part that we're seeing now is just the phishing and the social engineering scams, through email, which which is majority of where your issues are coming from, or from email. But a lot of it though is back years ago, it was more like I was saying, the break fix type of relationship, where now it leans heavily on training too, not training for just our IT technicians, but training for the end users that are at the clients that we're servicing. Because not only is it just best practice to be able to stay on top of things and learn what a phishing email is, and learn how to pay attention to an email that comes to you that kind of looks legit, but there's some telltale signs on there that you kind of need to look at. And so not only is it good for that, a lot of these cybersecurity insurance companies that is really needed now, they're forcing a lot of that down too, to make sure
Mhm.
that before they go and insure a company for whatever cyber breach or whatever could happen from their aspect, that at least that the people they're insuring are, checking the boxes and at least training and going through something and having protocols in place, to at least prevent as much as you can, so that's a lot of what we're seeing now is more training than we were seeing, years ago, that's being pushed out towards the end user.
And I'm curious on the back end on with your company. So when you guys kind of started to move and shift from the break fix dynamic to the cybersecurity, what did that look like within the company? Like, is it a level of reorganization? Are you building new departments?
Well, not necessarily building new departments. We
Hmm.
did hire on some new technicians at that point, that had more expertise in that realm. And so there is some of that, and a lot of it is tool driven too, because a lot of it's tools that you could technically install yourself, which is great. But if you don't have the expertise and the manpower behind the scenes interpreting what those tools are telling you, the tools are technically worthless. And so it's a kind of a combination between finding the right tools and the right software to kind of to combat some of those threats that are out there, but then having the internal people here as well, diagnosing it and looking for false positives, looking things that you may have got flagged as bad, but it's technically benign. Or, if it is a true attack or a true issue, having the wherewithal to be able to get on the phone with the client and then say, okay, we do have an issue right here. So let's get this locked down, or let's change this password, whatever the case may be. So it did change, but we're still doing, kind of what we were doing before. There's still the break fix, just not like it was then, but now the cybersecurity tools is what is kind of driving the industry now.
Yeah, and I know that you mentioned that you're also having to train clients. So what does that look like in regards to training clients present day? How is that different than what you guys were doing before? And I know some people like myself, like moderately tech savvy, but like not that tech savvy. So it's like for someone who might not even be tech savvy at all, it's like, how are you guys ensuring that they're getting the proper training?
Well, we've got interactive videos
Mm.
with short little quizzes, after them, just to make sure, number one, that they're paying attention to them, and they're less for us than they are for the business owner or the office administrator or office manager on that side. So that way they can look at it and say, okay, well, you didn't watch this 5-minute video for the month, and you didn't go through these 3 questions right here, and so making sure that they're going through the material, and then whoever their point of contact is, who's kind of owning that within their office, is then, just poking them and probing them, hey, we need to get this going, or, you need to redo this one because there was obviously an issue. So there's some of that. And then we also, and a lot of that was available previous to all this. It was just now that it's being pushed down by insurance companies, forcing the training on the employees, where the
Basically.
companies are getting more on board now, and kind of pushing that. And so it's more of a service that we offer them, more or less. It's not really beneficial to us. It's more or less just an extra service that we offer to the company to be able to check those boxes. And then we, to kind of facilitate that, we actually fish the employees as well. So we'll send out it where it looks like it's coming from Amazon or UPS or one of these different companies, to get you to try to click this link or get you to try to enter your credentials in, because it would be better for us to fish that employee and turn it over to their contact to say, look, okay, well, this is an employee that probably needs to go through the training again. If this was truly a bad actor, here's the information that would have gotten out, or, whatever the case is. And so we do that kind of proactively as well, to help them, get better, and, just to let them kind of look at our emails that we're sending out and correlate that into some of the true spam and phishing that are coming through. Because no matter how good your spam or your phishing filter is, things are going to slip through, because the criminals are getting better and better every single
They're
day.
getting
So
smarter.
they
Yeah,
are.
sometimes I get these emails and I'm like, that was a good one.
It
Yeah.
is. I mean, these are full-time jobs for these people. I mean, it's not just somebody sitting in a basement somewhere. I mean, these are
Yeah.
companies that are doing nothing but trying to just exploit people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. And I'm curious too, because you mentioned like before it was just an insurance requirement and now companies are getting more proactive. Do you think they're just getting more proactive just because of the security threat increase?
I think so. I mean, especially the way it's in the media right now as well, too, because every time you turn around, there's a data breach, or you're getting a letter in
So
the mail saying that your
change your
information,
password.
yeah, or your information may or may not have been released, by our
Yeah.
system, by some bad actor. So I think the more that it's in the forefront right now, that's what's getting a lot of people on board. But then again, you still have some of the companies that think they're just too small, to get attacked, where at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because if your information winds up on the dark web and some bad actor just gets that file that has a combination of email addresses and passwords, they don't care if you
Yeah.
work for a 3-man company or a 200-person company. It doesn't matter, because they're just going in with algorithms and different, software that they've got, and they're just attacking. If they get a username and password combination, they're going to use that combination on, a plethora of different sites until they get one that hits. And if they don't, they'll move on to the next one. So I think a lot of it is just media driven, as far as the ones that are, getting on board with it. But you always have the people that just think they're just too small to get attacked.
Yeah, and this is just from my ignorance because I actually don't know much about dark web. But like once it gets on the dark web, is that something that you guys are able to monitor and help with, or is that just it? Is it just over from there? It's like out, it's out, it's gone.
Well, yes and no. We can monitor it, and that's one of the services that we bring to the table as well. Is we can monitor the whole domain. So if your email address is at whatever.com, we can monitor any email address at that domain. And so anytime something does pop up in any kind of dark web reports or anything that's out there, once it gets flagged, then we can go and turn around and let our clients know that, hey, there's been a data breach out there. your email address and this password was found out there. So if this looks legit, you may want to go ahead and change your password, just to be on the safe side. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to live out there indefinitely. But once you change your password, then the information they've got is out of date at that point. So it's good to be proactive with that. And there are services out there that can monitor it on your personal accounts as well. But yeah, that's the dark web. That's where everything's going to land once those data breaches actually take place.
I wouldn't dare go on the dark web. I'm not going on the dark web. I'm not that person. I'm like, I don't want any access to it on my computer. It freaks me out that much. I don't
You're right.
understand it. Yeah.
Just stay away from it.
Just stay away from it. And okay, so I'm curious too, because I know that you mentioned not only are you working with like the employees at the front desk, but I know sometimes you're also working directly with the leadership team, with middle managers. So tell me about the different roles you play with the different levels at the companies and how you guys step in. Because I remember you saying sometimes you're even in their larger meetings, just making sure that they have everything moving and grooving in the right direction.
Right. A lot of our clients that we do have those relationships with, any decision that comes down on their side, and a lot of these companies have, technology planning committees and different things such as that. And so as they have meetings, they'll either have an internal meeting and then invite one of us to the meeting after the fact, after they come up with some ideas, after they've got done spitballing. And they'll bring us in, number one, to help with budgetary numbers. If you want to do this particular project, well, how much, they may not even know how much to budget for. So we can bring that to the table and say, okay, well, you need to budget for this much, in order to make this happen. And then another thing is when we're meeting with them at the higher level like that, these computers don't last forever, even just your basic workstation. So instead of having to rip the Band-Aid and buy 100 computers at one time because you bought them all on the same day and they're all going to start end of life and around the same time, it's better to stagger them and say, okay, this quarter budget for this minute to be refreshed, and then this quarter let's budget for this. So we help them build those reports too, to say, hey, here's a roadmap, for the next 12 months to 36 months. Here is what we need to work on as far these, this block here is going to last you, probably another year. People will be happy with them. After that, they're going to start screaming about them being a little too slow. So let's get those replaced, as time goes on. So it's everything from that to it kind of goes into place. What I was saying earlier was if we get the same type of issue coming from the same client over and over again, sometimes we look internally and is it a training issue with us? Is it something we can do, to kind of alleviate that? Other times it may just be a piece of equipment there or even a procedure they're doing IT related at their place that we can bring to the table and say, okay, we're seeing a lot of this come through. It looks to be a pain point for, 20, 30% of your employees. If we tweak this, or if you possibly change this, or even if we bring this extra piece of software in, we may be able to alleviate that, make your people more efficient. And then in turn, it makes us more efficient as well. So it's everything from budget planning to just kind of looking at the little things that come through day to day that the decision makers at that company may not even be aware of. They may not know that this one department over here is having the same type of issue over and over again, and then they're being that much less productive. So we can kind of help that to make the company more productive on their side, and then to, alleviate some of the things that are going on with us as well.
And so you guys are also strategic advisors in the sense. And I'm curious, is that something that you started out doing, or did that develop over time as you built more trust? Is it something you added on? This is definitely like also advisory roles.
It is. It kind of has been that way from day one. I mean, just being in a smaller community as well. I mean, these are people that you're going to see at the grocery store. These are the
Mhm.
people you're going to see in town, and so you build those relationships, and it's people that you're going to see. And so it's more of one of those things where they're looking at you because they know you're in this industry and they know the company, and it's built trust. Just what we're doing. And so it's kind of always been that way, but it's gotten a lot more that way just the more that IT is driving the company, because I mean, IT is more operations at this point, just because without that, I mean, you really can't do your job. So the more that it's gotten where IT is driving the business, it's gotten even more like that. But it's kind of always been to a strategic planning aspect of what we do, kind of where the managed service world is as a whole.
And I'm curious too, because I know that you said that you guys are expanding, like you have 3 locations now. With the 3 locations, have you stayed generally within the same vicinity, or did you guys move further outwards?
We moved a little further north because we're down in Southwest Georgia. We moved into the Middle Georgia area, so we're kind of handling Middle Georgia all the way down to as far south as you can go, and then we've expanded a little further east as well from where we are. So we're kind of getting a larger footprint, but yeah, we are going out into different cities though. So so a little bit further north, but yeah, we've got clients from all the way up, I would say, to Atlanta and back. It's a lot of them that have home offices where our offices are, and they've got some satellite offices in Atlanta and different places. But yeah, that's kind of what we've done from now.
And are you guys planning to continue to expand across Georgia, and even go to other states?
Really not sure about other states at this point. If the opportunity arises, I'm sure we will look at it. But as far as Georgia, yeah, I mean, if it's a community that we're wanting to get into and a certain market that we're wanting to get into that's either, doesn't have adequate IT for the people there that need it, and then if it's something that we can do to better it, of course, we're going to definitely, do what we can to move into those companies, to move into those areas.
Yeah. And when you guys look for new locations, is that what you're doing? You're kind of looking like, where's the gap? Where do people not have proper quality IT services?
That and what's the growth of the area too? What
That's
type of
cool.
business growth is going on in those particular areas? Because it's surprising just looking at some of the small communities within Georgia, some of the industry and just some of the different companies that are coming in and opening up. So it's a lot of that looking at them as well.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm curious too, like when you think about the long term for Envision, what's your guys's, do you guys have like a North Star? Do you have like a long term big goal that you're working towards now?
I mean, honestly, we're just getting it, just making it where we can continue to scale it, at the level that we're doing and continue to go larger. I mean, really, there's no end game in mind. I mean, the goal is where there's a need for IT and where there's a place that we can fit in a market that'll do great for us, and that's more than likely where we're going to wind up. So yeah, there's no magic number or no magic end game.
That's
It's
fine.
just as
Just keep
good as we
going.
can be. Is Yeah, just keep going. Why slow down?
I
We
like
got
that.
something that's working. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I'm curious too, like at the end of the Envision life, is there any talk about like that? Is it going to be passed on to maybe one of the owner's children? Are they thinking about maybe one day selling it, or have they just not sort of decided that yet?
Really, I don't think that's decided at this point. I mean, I think it's too early in the game and everybody's having too much fun doing what we're doing. So,
I love it. I love it. My dad had a business like that. He's just having too
yeah,
much fun. They weren't thinking about it.
that's it. It's
Yeah.
just fun going and growing right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming. This is a really cool conversation. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you diving into all the details. It's really fun to learn about how everything's run, managed, all those different dynamics. If listeners are looking to find out more about yourself, about the company, where can they go?
They can go to our website. It's invtech.com, and they can find me on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, all of our information and all of our services are at our website, invtech.com.
Yeah, and I'll put those two links in the show notes too, just in case anyone's looking for them. They can find them real fast. And again, thank you so much for coming. This was really awesome. I had a great time. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.